Hey, hi there. Um, just completed off a little bit of work and wanted to quickly share this with you guys. So I recently took part in a clinic that was fully online, kind of Zoom call, and found it amazingly interesting and actually had a recording of the clinic, and it was surrounding the art of scouting. And thought it would be a good idea to share that on this YouTube channel of mine. And I hope it also provides some added insight. It is originally from Thomas Irving. So he is one of the many scouts in the NBA. He's currently a scout for the LA Lakers, still is, to be honest. So yeah, I think it should be very interesting for you guys to have a look at further. Hope you enjoy it, and let me know what you guys think. And please do take a minute to like, comment, or subscribe after you watch the video. And yeah, looking forward to hearing back from you guys. Have a good one.
And I wish that it was possible to express and share with you all of the lessons learned over the last 20 years with just a fantastic organization with fantastic people. That is absolutely impossible to do on this call, but I'm going to do my best to kind of give you guys kind of an overview of what we do as scouts, a little bit about our scouting department, and what we do in our role as NBA scouts. So I'm going to start there, because I've been asked many, many times, and as scouts, we have probably the most interaction with the public and people who are basketball fans all around the world, and Laker fans all around the world. So we do have direct contact, whether it's at games or it's in the airport or airplanes in our travels. I think a lot of times we have the most interaction sometimes with basketball enthusiasts around the world. So I will start and just kind of dive right in with the question that is most often asked to us, which is, what is the role of an NBA scout? Like, what do scouts actually do? I can't tell you how many times we get that question, out on the road. And so I will start there. Some on this call, and I'm not exactly sure how many people are on the call. Some, like Jim Kelly, is a very, very experienced veteran NBA scout, longtime scout. So hopefully some of these things can be able to help someone who has questions about what we do. So basically our job as scouts with the Los Angeles Lakers, and we have a team of scouts in that role, our job primarily is to identify, report, and evaluate prospects for the franchise. We're there to help management, best players available in the draft. We do that single year. That's a year-long process. That is something that takes a lot of time, resources of time, resources of money, and finances by the organization, and resources of just our passion and our whole basketball existence. For me, I have basketball in my DNA. I call it a gift that I have to be able to have the love and passion for the game, and I'm just glad to be able to share it with my organization and try to represent the game the best as I possibly can. But again, our goal as scouts, our number one goal, in my opinion, and I do want to say that a lot of this is my own opinion. I think if you speak to other people, other guys in the role, they will all have different experiences, different backgrounds, and different perspectives. So I just wanted to reiterate that most of this is my own personal take on our area of scouting. But our number one goal really is to help our general manager build a team to make the playoffs, be a championship contending team, ultimately with the goal of winning champion. The thing that's great about being with the Laker organization, and I've been here 20 years, and I don't know all organizations. I would hope and I believe that we all have the common goal, but I know for a fact that our goal is to win a championship every single year. And I like to liken us to, I kind of call us crazy people, you know, because we sit around and we love the game, we love the franchise, and we love to try to help do everything that we can do to try to help our team improve and to win the championship every single year. So, as I'm sure any basketball enthusiast will know, you know, there are three major ways that a team can improve, you know, our chances of winning a championship or improving the team. And one, obviously, is by way of trades within the 30 franchises. Another way is signing free agents that fit our team and fit our organization. Our general manager is totally responsible for that. And in our area, which is the scouting department, we are responsible for acquiring young talent by way of the draft. And those prospects and that talent that we hope can improve our team can come from all around the world. You know, scouting is the game is so global, and it's all around the world now. Those players can come from college, they can come from Africa, they can come from Europe, South America, really all 7 continents around the world. And so that makes scouting in today's environment somewhat of a challenge to be able to comprehensively cover the entire world, in which we have domestic scouts and we also have international scouts, which I will talk about later. And they travel the world, just scouring the world, looking for talent. The second thing I like to touch on is, you know, I've been asked, and like I said, we've all been asked, you know, like what makes for a great scout? What makes for a talent evaluator? What makes for somebody that can really have an eye for talent? What is that composed of? And I wanted to talk a little bit about that next. You know, I will start with what I think probably the primary lesson and the first lesson that was given to me almost the day that I started on the job. So I'll tell you a little story. So my first year, got hired by the Lakers. It was unbelievable. And our first trip, why would they have us go to Hawaii? So we for training camp. And at training camp, I went to our head scout and I asked him to have lunch with me. His name was Mr. Gene Tormolin. And of course, at that time, I thought, you know, he would pick some high-end place. You know, they just won a championship. He works for the Lakers. He wanted to go to Subway. So we go to Subway for lunch. And so we're talking, and I wanted to just kind of pick his brain a little bit. And I asked him, you know, tell me one thing that I need to know to be a great scout. Like what would I need to give me one lesson that I need to know? And he came right out and said, don't be a yes man. Okay, don't be a yes man. All right. That was easy for me because I'm not one anyway. And I can't say that I can say that I kind of understood what he was saying, but now after 20 years, I really, really understand what that means. Like, don't be a yes man. So I think the role of a scout really, really what makes for a good scout starts right there is, you know, we're in an environment, an opinion-based environment. And sometimes it's challenging when you're sitting around with just great guys, and you're talking about basketball, and you're talking about players, and sometimes the tsunami of opinions is going one way, and it's very easy to just follow along and to go with the tide. If that's a good example. So, and it's a challenge, I think for some people, not as much for me because I'm not that type of person, but, when the general manager comes in and the coach comes in and ownership is in the room and they believe something or they believe in someone that you disagree with, you have a difference of opinion. And it's sometimes a challenge to be able to say, I respectfully disagree with what you're saying. And I remember when I first started, our previous staff, they told me that you would really know what you were doing after the first 5 years. So about 5 years, I used new career, which is a new way of looking at the game. And I remember our former general manager, Mitch Kupchak, and they were talking about a player, and for me being the quiet person in the room, it was the first time that I had seen the player about 4 or 5 times, and I disagreed with what they were saying. And that was the very first time that I spoke up and I disagreed, and I never forget the way he looked at me, as if, okay, you disagree, and okay, that's a good thing. And for me, it was confirmation that I had arrived, that I knew that I was able to help my organization by giving a difference of opinion. And so my philosophy for what makes a good scout starts right there with the fact that you have to be able to have your opinion, stick with your opinion, don't be afraid to be wrong, and your honest opinion about talent and what you've seen out in the field. You have to do that. Number one, you cannot be afraid to have a strong opinion. This is an opinion-based department, and you have to be able to provide that. For me, if you're not providing your honest opinion to management, you are doing the team a disservice. You're not helping just being a yes man. If you're just agreeing with everybody and you allow others who have valid points, valid opinions, and you allow that to influence how you're going to think. For me, if you do that, you have no value as a scout. So it starts right there. Agree to disagree, be able to have an opinion, and don't be a yes man. Don't sit there and agree with the consensus of the room. Have your own opinion, and that is the only way, in my opinion, that you can help your organization. For me, also, I think this is probably one of the most challenging parts of scouting. When I first started, I had no idea what I was doing. I thought I played basketball my whole life, and it was going to be an easy transition to sit in the stands and watch the game and express what I see on paper. That really took a few years. That took a few years to be able to improve, go back, look at reports, get better. And the main thing that I had to develop was to be able to trust your instincts. For me, a good scout has to trust his instincts, which sometimes is tough because it's your job. You get paid to go out and find players and evaluate players. You're using the team's resources. You're receiving a salary. You almost feel like, hey, I have to come back with something. And that's not necessarily true to be a good scout, okay? A good scout, you may, and like I said, it took me a while to get to this point, but a good scout, you have to understand that I may go on a trip and I may see 10 games and I really don't see anybody that is impressive. Or I may go out and I may go see one game and a kid is just totally blows you away. And I will give you some examples of that. So in 2016, our former general manager, Mitch Kupchak, who is now the general manager for the Charlotte Hornets, we go on a trip with our international scout, Antonio Macieres. Well, we fly, we're all over the place. We go to Israel, we go to Turkey, we go to Germany, and we end up in Belgrade, Serbia. So we get to Belgrade and we drive to, I don't know, maybe about an hour outside of Belgrade to a town that is that they're like, they have a spigot in the town where people are getting their drinking water. We're just sitting there like, this is unbelievable. So we're sitting in the gym. It's me, like I said, Mitch Kupchak and Antonio Macieres. And Antonio is telling us about this player that we're here to see. He's not on the court. So we're sitting there and whatever we're talking about, and just out of nowhere, this kid walks by me, and my whole basketball instinct and my whole, I don't even know what to call it, it just gravitates to this young man. And so I like what I see. And I don't know anything about this kid. And he goes out and he starts shooting around, and he's, going through his little workout. And in about 15 minutes, I looked at our general manager and said, I don't need to see anymore. I'm finished. That's my guy. And every day after that, I think I drove our international scouts nuts, because I was calling them, asking them, is there any way we can get this guy? This guy, he was in my spirit. He just, I don't know. It was just something about him that said, this kid is a Laker. And make a long story short, come to find out, he ends up being available with our 32nd pick in the 2016 draft. His name is Ivica Zubac, who I just knew had everything about him said Lakers. And now he's, we ended up trading him away, obviously, which I almost cried that day when we ended up having to trade him. But, those decisions are made by management. But the point is that my instinct led to this young man, and we ended up drafting him, and he really didn't get an opportunity to play with us. But now, as you can see, is a starting center, and he's so young, has a lot of upside and potential. It's just one example of the beauty of scouting, when you see and you run into something that just taps into your basketball DNA and your experience and your passion. And unfortunately, that doesn't happen every night. That for us may happen maybe one time a year. And it's happened in the past. It's happened with players like Chris Bosh, that I've seen in high school. And there's just something about the kid that I couldn't keep my eyes off of him. And I really instinctively fell for him. Kyle Kuzma is another one. Josh Hart, Jordan Clarkson. Last year, what happened to me, I walked in the gym. I'd never seen Ja Morant before in my life. And, it was one of those rare nights that you just said, I don't need to see this kid anymore. I'm done. And so I think a good scout at the end of the day has to be able to trust his gut instinct, and again, not be afraid to be wrong. That gut instinct and that player that touches into the essence of what you're there for is one of the most exciting that can happen to an NBA scout. A good NBA scout right now today, intel on prospects is very important. It's almost, I don't want to say anybody can do it, but it's easy to determine, the skills that somebody has on the court, where you can handle the ball, pass, shoot, and those type of things. But the intel now today that we collect on prospects is very, very, very vital. So being able to know coaches, to be able to know, trainers, assistant coaches, and people that have had interaction with some of the young prospects that are in, around the world today is very, very valuable. Again, and some of the other things that makes for a good scout is somebody that is You have to be able to work independently. You don't have a general over your head. You have to be able to, he has to be able to trust that you're out and you're going to games. You're not cheating the organization. You're going to make your flights, and you're going to do everything that you can to, whether to be responsible and to, and to do your job without them micromanaging you. So you have to be able to really, really manage your time effectively. And you also have to be responsible for the team's resources. All teams are spending on scouting. Fortunately for the Lakers, we have the team's resources at our disposal. I have a rule myself that, just because we have that doesn't mean I'm going to use and abuse that. I have a simple rule as a scout with the team's resources, and I say, hey, I'm going to do what it is that I would do for myself. So either if I'm gonna go to McDonald's one day, I'm gonna do that. And if I'm gonna go to a nice restaurant one day, I'm gonna do that. If I can get a discount doing something, I'm gonna do that because that's what I would do for myself. And that's just a simple rule that I use that I think is very important, to be able to manage the team's resources the best as you possibly can. My ultimate philosophy as for scouting, is really simple. I think you need to do your job and you go home. That's really, I think, what to not be able to get in people's way. You're not there to receive gear. You're not there to go to the game for free. You're not there to make friends. Your role is to be an asset for the team, to provide them with information, to provide them with an evaluation that's going to help make good decisions. Third, again, people have always asked, and at the end we're going to have questions, and hopefully maybe some of these will answer some of the questions that you may already have, but we'll have an opportunity at the end to be able to ask any questions that you may have. But I'm also asked this question, what makes for a good scouting department? With the Lakers, I feel as if we have the ideal scouting department with a bunch of great guys, just committed basketball, smart, intelligent guys that are just great talent evaluators. And I think that really a good scouting department starts there. It starts with hiring great talent evaluators, guys that are passionate about the game. They're loyal to the game. They're loyal to the staff. They're loyal to your general manager and the organization. And, so what do I mean by being loyal, to the organization and your staff? We're in the information gathering business. That's what we do, So I think that it's very imperative to know that the environment that we're in, the guys that you work with, the guys that are in that, it's a trusting environment. So, the leaking of information, sharing of information with other teams, and even kind of self-promoting out there in some ways is detrimental to a scouting department. Thank goodness we don't have any of those issues. From a scouting perspective, we have to think that we have over 4,500 Division I players in the US alone, and over 900 college basketball teams, which for us means about over 10,000 domestic players alone that we have to be able to know each and every school, each and every name, all the prospects, and that's just domestic. That's not extending into the international basketball leagues around the world. So you have to have a staff of guys that, like what we have, that are willing to meticulously sift through and go through every name, every school, every league in every country, not leaving one stone unturned. Our job is to narrow that list of thousands and thousands of players around the world into a compiled list of about 60 or 70 or so prospects, and we cannot miss a name. So you can just imagine what kind of massive undertaking that is for us as a staff, and all teams are doing the same thing. We're not any different from any of the other 30 franchises, but it's a massive undertaking in which the Lakers and many other teams around the league spared no expense in collecting and getting the information of from the scouting department. So the general managers and the management are very busy managing the team, so they have to trust scouts and support scouts and their scouting department and provide us with the resources that we need to be able to go out and collect the information to be able to help make good decisions. I think at the end of the day, we have to understand the organization. When you're fortunate and working with a great organization as we have, is one that understands that this is not an exact science. You can just look at the All-Star game the All-Star game from this year. And, because mistakes are going to be made. Of those 24 players, you got to think that only 3 of those guys, from what I calculated, were number 1 picks. So when you think of, Kawhi, when you think of Giannis, when you think of so many other players, Harden, those players were not number 1 picks. But when you go back and do the redraft, you say, hey, the entire draft would be different. So you just try to do the best that you can. You try not to miss. You try to use all the resources we have in our in our hands, from video to passing the eye test, to statistics, to intel, to interviews, and all of those resources that we can possibly use to try to minimize the risk of making mistakes. I think overall, if you look at the way that we've drafted over the last several years, that we have drafted very well. And of course, it's our goal is to never become complacent, but is to do that every single year. And there are other teams that have done the same thing. So just know that is our goal every single year. I think what also, in my opinion, makes for a great scouting department is diversity. In our department, we have a lot of diversity, and and it starts with having an elder statesman like Bill Beko, who has been with the organization over 50 years. He's in his 90s. He's still working. He has coaching experience. He was a former general manager. He had his own scouting service, Beko Views, and you guys got to look that up. All the basketball historians and research that Beko's Views, where he had his own scouting service, and he is actually the one who came up with the concept of scouting and evaluating players, still going strong, still being able to provide his strong opinion. Look him up, and it's just a wealth of basketball experience and knowledge. And I like to say he's forgotten more about basketball than I ever would know. So he's just fantastic. So we have an elder statesman in Bill Beko. We also have in our group the youngest scout in basketball in the NBA, which is John Pellister, who is our international scout, and he lives in Turkey. We have Jesse Buss, who is an owner. He's a assistant general manager, and our director of scouting. He's just loves basketball, very smart. This guy has a memory that he has a gift of a memory. He doesn't forget anything. And we have his brother, Sean Buss, who's also a scout. We have Moses Zapata. He's the coordinator of scouting. We have myself that has basketball experience domestically as well as internationally, and then have also played in the NBA and various, just a very diverse background in the game of playing experience. It starts with Rob Palenka, who, as you know, was a very successful agent and is a lawyer, and he's a very smart, hardworking individual. We have Antonio Macieres, who has general manager experience at FC Barcelona. Just a wonderful, wonderful, kind gentleman. He's very smart and very hardworking. We have Luca Desta, who's on the call here today. Luca, how are you? Who has joined us last year. He has experience working with the Dallas Mavericks, and he's a welcome addition to our organization, to our team. And we also have Ilan Vinokourov, who has experience running his own scouting service. So, those diverse backgrounds and that just wealth of experience and difference of opinion. We have older guys, we have younger guys, we have guys that have playing experience, which I think gives you somewhat of an advantage or a different perspective in looking at the game. And we have, guys that may not have played, but are very, very smart and passionate about the game of basketball, very knowledgeable. And all of those things and all of those people really contribute to our think tank in order to help. And they all bring different perspectives and different experiences and are able to help management make good decisions. People have often asked me as well about our war room or our draft room. And again, that's a process for us that starts camp. Every team pretty much does it, where we come together at the beginning of the year and we get a chance to watch the team and get a feel for the team. We're not there as fans. We're there to come together as a department. But our main focus in being there is not only to spend time together, but also to get a feel for the team and what our needs are. And I think the most valuable part of being in training camp is, for us as scouts, is it helps you gauge the speed, the quickness, the size, the strength, the athletic ability of NBA players. Sometimes, you forget, if you don't see it up close and you don't get a chance to really bronze up close, you don't get a chance to see a Kobe up close. I remember being at a game this year and I was just fascinated. I think I told a friend of mine who was at the game, I said, look at LeBron's jump leg. His jump leg is like just a big, it's like one big muscle, and you have to be able to compare those guys that are on the team to guys that you see out there in the field and be able to measure and gauge and say, hey, can this guy guard LeBron? Or can this guy guard Curry? Or so you're always making those assessments. And our time in training camp with the team allows us to gauge that the talent of current NBA players. All teams pretty much meet throughout the year. We do the same thing, creating a scouting schedule, assessing our team needs, again, with the ultimate goal of selecting the best player available in the draft. That is always our goal. We don't draft players based on need. We don't draft players based on position. Our philosophy has always been to select the best player available. I like to think that, and we have this in our group, I think for a healthy scouting department is the ability to agree to disagree. Even if we have great guys, we get along very well, we spend a lot of time together, but we don't always agree on the same things. And we may argue and we will disagree, and at the end of the day, we know that it's for the sole purpose of being able to select the right guy, the right player, the one that fits our team. You never want to have the 20th pick and have the 25th pick be the best player, a better player and a better prospect than the player you pick. So that requires just an unbelievable amount of research and resources and time and energy And, like I said, to be able to make those things possible. Freedom of opinion is very important in the draft room. You should never prevent a guy from expressing what he thinks. If he thinks Mickey Mouse should be the number one pick in the draft, he should be free to say that. Now, you still want to be right, more times than you are wrong. But you still should have the freedom of opinion, again, with the objective of getting it right and helping management make good player and drafting decisions. I think this is the biggest question that people have they ask, and so as we're getting ready to kind of wind it down a little bit, I don't want to talk too long. We're going to open it up to questions that you guys may have, and I'm looking forward to that. But this is probably, like I said, the most common question is, what do scouts look for? What do we look for in potential prospects? That is, I'm going to try to explain that the best I can. So, and if you speak to different scouts, everybody has their own style. They have their own eye. They have their own way of doing things. And again, I just want to reiterate that this is my way of evaluating prospects. So for me, it may sound strange, but when I go, this is kind of why we call it the art of scouting. That's why we call this the art of scouting. It's just my own thinking, is that when I'm going to the game or when we're going into the season, that it starts with a blank canvas. That's why I liken it to an art form, because I start with a blank canvas. I try not to go into the season. I try not to go into games with a preconceived notion in my head about something that I read or something that somebody said, or even something that I've seen in the past. I really try to start with a blank canvas. And when I scout a game, that report is totally blank, because I believe in my philosophy that players find you. It drives me crazy sometimes when people say, oh, I discovered this guy and I discovered that guy. And, the guy's been around for years, so I don't think anybody really discovers. I think the player that intrigues you and touches your heart, your mind, your soul, your DNA, that player is on display for you. So what I come up with on this canvas is what I have observed about you. Those things can be tangible skills that you've displayed on the court, and they also can be intangible skills, which are just as important as the physical skills, right? So if you have character, you're coachable, you have basketball intelligence, you're a good person, you work hard, you play hard, those skills are just as important as somebody that can handle, dribble, shoot, and all of those tangible skills. So for me, at the end of the day, when I'm done with my report on a player in that game, that report is almost like a drawing of what I think that this player is, what I think about his character, what I think about his skills, and my opinion on him based on my observations just in that day. It's almost like it's an art form, and that's why we called it the art of scouting. It is not an exact form. It's a lot of it's opinion based, and it's a lot up to interpretations different people, see different things. And I think that's also what makes scouting department really valuable, in trusting the guys that you work with and knowing that we all see things differently and we all put our opinions and thoughts into that basket at the end of the day with the sole goal of picking the right guys. So yes, of course, different skills today requires different positions require different skills. Okay? If you can't do multiple things in the game today, you can't handle, pass, shoot, have athletic ability, be able to have intelligence, be able to play without the basketball in your hand. I mean, those things are all, and the game has really, really evolved to what we see today, which I call more of a three-point shooting contest. You see the game now, the NBA game, many teams are playing with 5 guys behind the three-point line. So, the players and the prospects that you're out evaluating and looking at, you have to kind of envision them and how they would fit in the modern game. Sometimes that's easy. Sometimes that takes you a few times of seeing a player before you get a really good feel for whether they can have success in the NBA. Our eldest scout, Bill Burka, he tells us a story of him going out and going on a trip, and he came back and he told his boss, general manager, that he didn't, he felt bad because he didn't find a guy, he didn't see anybody at, these 2 or 3 tournaments that he went to. So it's important to realize and remember that, whether a player can or cannot play, whether he's good enough to play in the NBA or not, both of those, the information is both valuable in as far as us as scouts. It allows us to be able to focus on the guys that can play, and then you can, not focus as much on the players who you think are not talented enough to play in the league. So in conclusion, again, I do want to thank you guys for just the opportunity to speak to you today. Again, I'm going to just thank Brian for the opportunity to just to be in front of you today. Jerry West, I will share with you. Jerry West told me one time that, and he told me one day that basketball needed me, and I didn't think he was talking to me. I thought he was talking to somebody else, So it's things like these that I was really looking forward to doing. Is my hope and my wish that it helps someone would have whether it's have a better understanding about what we do in an area of the game that they may not, they may have been curious about, or it may help. If someone wants to know how to start a career as a scout, we can discuss those things as well. But it's been fantastic being a part of just a championship team. I've won 3 championships with the organization. And I think that, some people at times don't realize that it takes hundreds of people like myself behind the scenes that are helping the team try to be successful as possible on and off the court. So that being said, I wanted to, again, thank you for this opportunity, and I wanted to open the floor to any questions you guys may have.
Any big questions for Irving? Anybody want to start off?
Is it possible for me to make a start?
Okay.
Hi.
Yeah.
My name is Asterios Kalivas. I worked in some teams for Greece, for Russia, Spain, and I also worked for the national team, the Greek national team, when Giannis was there for the 3 years. So going back to this thing, you talked about talent. In 2014, when Giannis was there, and we were shooting after practice like for 1 or 2 hours, because Giannis always stays there longer than anybody else. If you told me at that moment that Giannis in 2019 would be the NBA, MVP, it sounded like really something. Okay, he would be a great player, but so this is about what you talked before. But basically, my question is about Zubats. Let's say you see Giannis, you see Zubats. Let's say all these guys. So you think, okay, there's a great talent. What is the next thing you are doing? I mean, are you going then? Are you trying to match analytically what you saw, or you just stick to your image and just take out any analytic, phase, any analytic thing that you could put in the equation, let's say?
Well, thank you for the question. I think as far as scouting is concerned, you have to use all resources that are available to you. So I do have a Giannis story. So we were in Treviso, Italy, and our European scout, Antonio Macieras, took us to see Giannis. And he was telling us about him and about his talent, and he really liked him. And we went and saw him play in this game. It was like, it wasn't an official game. It was like a, almost not a friendly game, but one of those. And, he was okay. He wasn't, impressive. Like, you would think this guy is a lottery, and, you look at it and say, are you sure? Are you sure? Do you think this guy is? And he was absolutely sure. And you're sitting there saying, well, And so when those things happen, you have to trust the guys like your European scouts who know him and have seen him. And then you take that and you go back and you may study and watch him on Synergy. You may, of course, you're looking at everything that you have, from statistical information to the other players in the draft that year. So, I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, but, it's hard sometimes to project what a kid cannot be. And I think some of those lead into the intangible things that we talked about earlier. Does he work hard? What does he have, inside of him that's going to drive him to be the best? You see the physical tools, but how is a kid going to react when he gets a big contract? How is he going to react if he plays in Los Angeles, where you have thousands of distractions every single day? So those are things that you just cannot predict. So you just try to use all of the resources, everything you possibly can. And like I said, at the end of the day, trust your instinct. And I don't think that Giannis, maybe even like a Kawhi, it's just almost impossible to project what a kid possibly can be. And that is the biggest challenge in scouting. And I think if all of us were able to do that, then you would never have him fall to the 15th pick in the draft, right? You would never have Kawhi fall to 15th pick. You wouldn't have guys, you wouldn't have Jokic, who's a second round pick, end up being an all-star. Those things wouldn't happen if we could, predict those things, more effectively. So we just do the best we can. Some of it is a matter of luck, but we try to do the best we can with the information that we have, at our disposal. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I know there's some more questions for Irv.
Yeah, Irvin, I have a question for you.
There you go.
Hey, so my name is Scott Brown. I'm a graduate student at Temple, work with women's programs as a manager there. My question is, as a college student, obviously early in the career, what do you think is like the best recommendation for ways to kind of start gathering that experience in scouting when you're not necessarily attached to a program doing it as an official role?
Okay. That is an outstanding question, and one that I almost addressed at the end of my presentation, because, and I will share with experience, and I hope that helps you. For me, when I was playing overseas, when I came back from the Lakers did not come knocking me to work with them. You know, I came home and my wife told me, hey, you know, why don't you call the Lakers and see what they have for you? And I was like, well, you got to be kidding me, right? I've been in Europe for almost 8 years, and you know, they're probably not even going to answer my call. So anyway, I put in a call to Jerry West, and he calls me back. And he should have never did that, because it was on after that. I believed that it could possibly happen. So believe it or not, I was in your shoes, not coming out of college, but I was coming back from overseas. And like I said, I had been out of the country for years. So I will share with you what I think that somebody would need to do. First of all, you have to know and have some type of contact with general managers around the league. I mean, you have to do that. And that information is accessible to anybody off of the NBA website. When I first started, they used to have a book called the NBA Guide and Register. And in that book, they had all the addresses, phone numbers, they had all the staff listings. And I went through the book and I highlighted everybody that I met along the way. It might have been 10 years ago, 5 years ago. I highlighted all those names and I started putting calls in the NBA franchises. And I will tell you that I got almost 100%, oh yeah, thanks, we will keep your name on file and that kind of thing. So I decided to take it to another level. And I started with a friend of mine buying my own ticket to go to Portsmouth. I would go to Portsmouth and I was in the stands and I was trying to make myself available and trying to meet guys that, you know, were decision makers for teams. And then after that didn't work, I went to the Chicago pre-draft camp and I stayed there and I was in the gym and I was talking to guys and I told them I could help you. And I just kept doing that until I got what I would call as an opportunity of a lifetime to work with the Lakers. So to help you and to give you some advice, I would say, one, you have to, like I said, be in contact with general managers. And that may mean write them a letter. That may mean write a note. That may mean pick up the phone. Do not disappear. We see that all the time. Somebody says, oh man, I want to be a scout, or oh man, I want to be a coach. And they may say that, one time and then you never see them again. My former general manager, Mitch Kupchak, he told me when I first came back from Europe, he said, it may take you 3 years before you get an opportunity. I wanted to kill the guy. 3 years? What do you mean 3 years? I'm ready now. And it took me exactly 3 years of making calls, sending notes, being on the phone, being visible, and being able to let people know that I am serious, that I can help you in ways that you have no idea. I've played at every level. I've had international experience, college experience, played in the pros, played in the minor leagues. So all of these things I can bring to your organization to help you be successful. So those are some of the things that I would recommend to you. And I would definitely recommend being persistent. You cannot, you're gonna get no's. For me, I teetered right on the borderline of being annoying and being persistent. I was right there, without going over into this guy's driving me crazy, but you have to be persistent. You have to stay visible. You have to be on the phone, and you have to believe. You believe, you can make it happen.
Thank you, Irving. Appreciate you, man.
You're welcome. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Sounded like a similar story to my beginnings as an agent, Irv. So Scott, I would tell you the same exact thing. Just be persistent, and you'll figure it out.
Good morning.
Yeah.
No question about it.
Any other questions?
I've got one, Mr. Irving.
Hello.
AJ Sharma from Toronto, Canada.
Nice to meet you.
I don't know if I'm talking here. The These scout schools and things that pop up at Vegas Summer League, how legitimate are they? Do you think that they help people who want to get into the scouting industry and work for an NBA team? And also, what salary range could somebody expect if they were working for an NBA team as a scout?
Very good questions. To answer your first one, I was a speaker at a scout school in Vegas once and had a great time there, and they were very cordial, and it was just a great experience for me. I think that those opportunities can help in some ways because it can give you an idea of what it takes to pick out a lot of the lifestyle and things that are required for you to be one. But I don't necessarily think that that's going to help you get a job as a scout. I don't think so. I think it's good for exposure. I think it's good for information. I think it's good for you to maybe deal with some of the realities of a career as a coach, as a scout, and those type of things. But as far as getting the opportunity to work in an NBA office, NBA franchise, you have to know decision makers. You have to know the general manager. That's the person that does the hiring and firing. And whatever way that happens for you to get to that person, whether you know somebody who's a scout, whether you know somebody is a director of player personnel, whether you know somebody's a director of scouting, whether you know somebody who's his friend, whatever it is that you have to do to make contact with that person who is the decision maker, which for every franchise is the GM, I would do it. And if you don't have that, I would call. And if he didn't answer the phone, I would write him. And if he didn't write him, what I did, I went to the Laker office. I knocked on the door and I asked for a meeting with Jerry West, and he met with me. So, I think that persistence and that never giving up attitude, if you really want it, you have to really, really go after it in that regard. So I don't think, like I said, I don't think that's going to help you get a job, but it will help you understand more about the business. And your second question, I'm sorry?
The salary range of an NBA scout.
Got it. Okay, that's a good question, and one that I probably cannot answer. From talking to other guys and doing my research, I have come to learn that some teams don't have contracted employees. Some teams may pay scouts on a per game basis. Some teams have full-time scouts, but they don't have a contract. Some guys are working part-time. With the Lakers, we are contracted employees. So there's a wide range of, there is no standard, I guess I can say, as far as the salary range for a scout. Again, like I said, some guys are paid on a per game basis, which is, they may work doing something else, and it's kind of like their side hustle. They're passionate about the game. It keeps them connected to the game, and they, make the choice to do that for themselves. As far as us in our organization, thankfully we're contracted employees, and that is our full-time job. That is what we do with the sole purpose of helping the team in any way we can. So that is the best answer I can give you because, again, there is no standard.
Appreciate your insight. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Irv, we have a question on the chat that I want to touch on. Do you prefer what area on the court do you prefer for scouting, as far as, I guess, physically sitting? That's my understanding of the question. Where would you prefer to sit physically? I know it's based on arena to arena.
Yeah. What a great question, an easy question. So for the best feel as a scout, to get the best feel of the speed, of the quickness, of the athletic ability, of a player, you want to sit courtside. I mean, if you had a courtside seat, that's the ideal, that's the place to be. You have the best feel, you have the best view, and I think that gives you the best feel for the game. It really does. You can't get any closer than that, right? So that's number one. If you can't get that, and guys are all different, okay? This is just my own personal opinion and my own personal views. For me, if I'm not courtside, I would be about 10 or 12 rows up in the stand where I can kind of slightly look down on the game and really get a good feel for watching the game develop, watching plays. And I like to sit on the opposite side of the bench so that I can get a view. We're also watching the intangible skills for kids. So I want to see him coming in and out the game. I want to see when his teammates try to give him high five and he doesn't give him high five back. I want to see how he reacts when his coach yells at him or screams at him. And, you know, is he a good teammate? Cheering for his teammates when he's out of the game. So sitting on the opposite side of the bench gives me that best view, about 10 to 12 rows up in the stands.
Okay. More questions for Irv?
I have a question.
Okay.
My name's Ethan Gold. I'm from New York City. How do you measure more of the intangibles? Some of the things that modern science kind of quantifies now, like decision timing or picking up concepts in a system. And do you guys also, as scouts, have kind of a form that you report back to your GM or file away? How do you kind of keep track of what you've seen?
Good question. Thanks for that question. Yeah, we do have a form. It's called a report, and it's a comprehensive report that we submit on each and every player. I think that we use a combination of things. Some are just your own personal observations. I may see a player in the game do something that I think is questionable or odd, and I'm not quite sure what that was, or maybe I interpreted things the wrong way. Again, we're just in the observation business, right? So sometimes you can be wrong. In that case, that's where the intel comes into play. So there are times where you will go back after the game in the back and speak to his coach. You may wait a few days and put in a call to his coach. You may know his assistant coach personally. You may know somebody in his conference that you can call and ask questions about the kid's character. I think for me, what I love to do the most is I like to walk in the gym, and whether that's practice or in the game, and really have nobody have any idea that you're there. Because I think when people know that you're there, as a scout, they usually put on their best, they're on their best behavior, right? And I would do it too. So when I played. So what I like to do is I'll go in the gym, I'll sit, and they would have no idea that you're in the gym, and I'm observing and I'm watching, and I get a chance to see players in what I call their natural habitat, what they would do if they know they're not being watched. So I try to do that. You can't do it every single time, but I try to do that as much as possible to get a really, really good feel, the truth about a kid and his character and how he interacts with his teammates and his coaches and his attitude and his work ethic on the court, and just him as a person of character. So that's how I would answer that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, Irv.
I got a question for you here.
Okay.
I'm just kind of curious on the side of the pro personnel. How are you guys evaluating talent if it's an NBA rotation guy, and you see how can we find this rotation guy to becoming a starter? Or the second part of that, how are you maybe identifying a guy from Europe that could become a potential player for us, like the PJ Tuckers, the Pat Beverly? So how are you guys looking at those prospects?
Right. Okay, good question. So for me, as well as Luca, we're on the college side. So we're not as much as at NBA games as we are college games. So we have advanced scouts that go out and see NBA games. and evaluate NBA talent. And they spend the whole year going to those games, looking for free agents, looking for players that are, that they can possibly trade for. I'm on the college side, so 90% of the time I'm at college games, minor league games, high school all-star games, traveling internationally. So I don't, that's a completely different field as far as an NBA college scout, which is what we do, and then the NBA advanced scouts, which I understand is a very grueling and challenging job that I don't think I want.
Hey, Irv, I got a question for you. Carmen Massarello here.
Carmen, how are you?
I'm great, bud. It's been a while since me, you, and Filippi played in the Gaucho gym at Santa Barbara. But
that's right. That's right.
What's the Lakers standpoint? What's the thing that you guys all believe? Hey, we're recruiting per se Chris Dunn. Chris isn't a great shooter, but the Lakers are comfortable knowing you can add that to his arsenal. Is there any things that you look at above other things that you have as non-negotiables, and then other things you feel you can add during that process where a guy may be undervalued, but you may think he's a steal?
You mean as far as current NBA players or college?
No, I mean when you're recruiting or when you're evaluating, you may say a guy is, hey, this guy's a little undervalued, but if we can give him this skill set because we believe in our skill development people, he may grow, and he may be a guy that we can get in a later round or at the end of the draft and add value to our ball club.
Right. So, I mean, that definitely is a part of the process, right? Because, I played years ago, and the draft and the league was a league of grown men. And now it's a league of, really, really young kids, where the philosophy has changed, where the younger you are is actually better, which is unbelievable. It's a seismic shift from what it was just years ago. So I think what you're saying is very accurate. I mean, because player development and the youth of the players that are coming in the league, that development, you have to be able to, you can't think that you're going to get a player that is really ready to help you right now. Player development has to fall into that calculation, that mix of the kid's potential, and he has the ability to get better. That is like what we're really, really trying to determine. Does he have the potential to improve? Does he have the potential to get better? Has he maximized his ability? So those are all things that fall into the evaluation process. And it has to be that way, like I said, because the kids are so young now. They're so young. 19, I was in high school. Now 19, the guys, can be a millionaire. So yes, the player development standpoint and being able to try to assess how much better he can become, and his ceiling is huge as in the evaluation process today.
Okay, that's Irv. Any more questions?
Coach, I got one.
KJ, go ahead.
Yep. Thank you for doing this, Coach Irv. Coach Smith from here in Brazil. My question was in regards to regional scouts. I know some teams use teams of regional scouts where it's 3, 4, 5, even 6 scouts at a time. My question is, do you see instances where regional scouts are moving on to advanced scout or college scout or international, or is that more for the other types of scouts as far as moving up the ladder?
Really terrific question. I mean, scouting really is kind of like the introduction to the business, and it gets you to understand what it takes to be able to evaluate talent, be able to travel, all of the factors that come that you're going to learn by being a scout. Really, being in the environment, being in the front office, being able to watch your general manager work. All of those things are going to help you grow as a person that's interested in the business. And if you think about scouting and evaluation departments, you have guys that start, now the common thing was to start in the video room, where general managers, they started in the video room and ended up being a coach like Eric Spoelstra, or being a general manager or director of player personnel. So it's really a beginning of the business that you can really advance into so many other areas of basketball. And it gives you a foundation to really build upon. You know that when you become a general manager or in management, you know what a scout should be doing. You know what he should be looking for. You know whether he's, out doing his job. So it has given countless amount of people an opportunity to move into different fields in upper level management and in other areas of the business. So I hope that does answer your question.
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Yes.
Irv, quick question. Appreciate your time, first of all. Jimmy Open with the Long Island Nets. Just wondering, is there anything you're looking for specifically when evaluating feel? Like aside from pick and roll decisions from a guard, like is there anything that stands out to you that you like, this is what you want to see?
Yes. And I think that differs from each scout. I think that differs from each evaluator. For me, I was lucky to be able to learn the game the right way at a young age. So for me, like the highest compliment that I could give a player is that he understands how to play. He knows how to play. A play that, just for example, drives me bananas is, just say you're on a break, and instead of advancing the ball, which is the right play to make on the break, right? A player would dribble from half court and not give it up and just go in for a selfish layup on his own. That play, for me personally, it drives me nuts. And the crowd goes nuts and the crowd goes crazy and everybody's cheering, and I write down selfish, just for me as a person. So just knowing how to play, making good decisions, studying the game, knowing how to play the right way, making right reads, those things for me, I would possibly say that is the highest compliment that I could give a player. This guy knows how to play. And that's for me is a huge check mark. It's a huge box that's checked for me. So hopefully that answers your question.
Hey, Irv, I got one question for you here. I've been coaching overseas the past 2 years with a U19 team, and I've been in the G League. I've been in draft rooms. I've been with some international kids who didn't make it for whatever reason. So my question for you is, some of these kids are getting recruited to high-level colleges, but they've got the opportunity to make a lot of money in Europe. And some of them have an opportunity, maybe if they went to college, to maybe get an NBA look, but I think if they stay in Europe, they might just become European players. What's your take on that? Like a guy like Joe Ingles, who came over later but had eyes on him early. I guess just what advice or how do you guys look at guys like that who maybe just stay in Europe and you get more eyes on them if they come over to college?
Well, that's kind of a difficult question, right? Because that's really something that a player has to determine on an individual basis. It's almost to determine if you haven't seen the player, you don't know his talent level. Some kids are unrealistic with their NBA dreams, and some of them are pretty close. So it's kind of hard to, really make that determination. For me, just in my own personal experience, in the fourth grade, I had a dream of playing in the NBA. That's the only thing I ever wanted to do. That was planted inside of me watching the Portland Trail Blazers in the finals when I was in elementary school. So then I ended up, playing summer league with the Lakers, and then I got an opportunity to go and play in Greece. Well, I took the opportunity to go play in Greece which was a mistake because my dream and my goal was to play in the NBA. So eventually that did happen, but it was a bad decision on my part because, you know, that was never my dream. That was never my goal. That was never my objective. So if I was speaking to any young player, and I would say that you should, in all shapes, form, or fashion, you should follow your passion. If you feel as if you have an opportunity to play in the league, I'm going to make every decision possible to make that happen. Whether that's going overseas, whether that's staying here in college, you know, it really depends what your goal is. If that's your dream, if that's your goal, to make whatever decision that you need to make, whether that's playing in the minor leagues, whatever sacrifice to make that happen. You should exhaust your dreams and give yourself an opportunity to make them happen. So again, that's really a tough call to say whether a kid should do that or not. And we don't make those suggestions at all to players. We don't have direct contact with draft ineligible players. We can't give them any type of advice at all, you know. But for a young player, I would always say, chase your dreams, all right? So that you never look back and say, I wish I had done this, or I wish I had done that. Chase your dreams and do everything possible to make those things happen, to make those dreams come true. That's what I would say.
Thanks, sir.
You're welcome.
Irving, I got a question for you here. Jim Kelly. You know, you've been in the league a long time. I've been around a little bit too. And I would say probably one of the biggest changes in the league is the more weight put on the analytical evaluation of a player. In your personal grade at the end of your evaluation, let's say from the beginning of the game to the end of the game, or you could even go from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, do you try to weigh in an analytical evaluation, or do you leave that to other people? Or does that matter at all to you in terms of you've looked over his skill size, you've looked over his background, you've looked over what he's done on the floor? Is that more important to you? Just out of personal curiosity.
Jim, who, guys, if you haven't met him, is a fantastic scout and just a terrific human being. Thank you for that question, which is an excellent question. For me, and as I stated earlier, you know, every scout is different. Some guys are more analytical. Some guys, you know, rely more on statistics and things of that nature, as you know. For me as an individual, I almost don't understand the analytical data. You know, it's something that I look at. It's something that I use as a tool. I will look at it. I will read it and try my best to understand it. But I think, and I just use it as a tool. But just like the statistical information, but for me, just as a human being, just as a person, I end up relying on my basketball instinct and what I saw as a scout. You know, I'm probably 90% of what I base my opinions on is based on that. That's why we do what we do. I trust what I feel. I trust what I think. I trust, you know, all of the basketball experience that I have at the different levels. I'm not right all the time, obviously, but I do tend to rely primarily on instinct, my feel, and my gut feeling about a player. So I understand the analytic part of the way we're going in basketball. I understand that direction a little bit, but I do think at the end of the day, it is a tool that you have to use as a part of the huge decision-making process sometimes to just select one guy. So, yeah, that's what I would say.
Very good. Thank you, Irv.
Thanks, Jim.
All right, Irv, I think we're going to wrap it up. Thanks for a great presentation, unless anybody else has any questions. Okay, thanks everybody. Have a safe rest of the week, and Irv, appreciate your time today.
You're very welcome, and thank you, everybody. Thank you. It's been a blessing
Bravo,
to
Irv.
talk to you today.
Bravo, as Lucas says, bravo.
Good luck
Thanks,
to
everyone.
everybody. Our basketball journey, right? Thank you. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.